Hello, my name's Laurie and I'm the Sustainability Sector Lead for BSI UK and Ireland. Today I'm going to be talking about a new product BSI have just created, the Net Zero Pathway, and how it can help organisations on their journey to becoming net zero. Before I talk about the product, I think it's important to remember why net zero is such a critical issue and something that every organisation needs to be aware of and taking actions to reduce their emissions of CO2 and other greenhouse gases. I'm sure many of you are aware that emissions of greenhouse gases have been linked to climate change, and if we continue to consume fossil fuels at an ever-increasing rate, we risk causing irreparable damage to the Earth's climate. For the period May 2023 through to April 24, the global average temperature has been at a record level and significantly higher than pre-industrial average. You might remember some of the climate-related issues in 2023, including huge forest fires in Canada and Hawaii, extreme heat in southern USA and Europe, and significant flooding in China. Sadly, 2024 has started off on a similar note, with intense rainfall, flooding, and fierce heat waves in many different areas around the world. In response to the ever-increasing changes to our climate, governments around the world have committed to taking action to limit the worst impacts and start to reverse the damage which has been done so far. This is taking the form of legally binding commitments and policies to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases and making a transition to becoming a net zero world where the amount of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere is no longer increasing. Worryingly, as you can see from the graph, current policies and commitments are not sufficient to limit climate change to less than 1.5 degrees, and it's becoming ever more important that organisations themselves step up and start to take action. It is encouraging that many organisations are starting to get to grips with their GHG emissions and are looking to improve, but this can be a challenging and complex topic. Some organisations have begun the journey but aren't really sure if they're on track, whilst others are committed to addressing the issue but don't really know where to start. There are a number of different certifications, awards and approval schemes in the marketplace, but sometimes it's not clear how scores and rankings are awarded and how they actually link to an organisation's journey to net zero. In order to support transparency and credibility, BSI has developed the Net Zero Pathway, which is built on international standards and best practice guidance issued by ISO, the International Standards Organisation. In order to ensure emissions are being correctly and accurately identified, the Net Zero Pathway includes formal accredited data verification, alongside regular audits of the deployment of carbon reduction plans and progress against targets. We understand that businesses change over time, and what seemed like a sensible and deliverable target a year or two ago might not be achievable now. The Net Zero Pathway includes regular reviews of targets and achievements to help an organisation keep focused on achieving their net zero goals. The Net Zero Pathway breaks down into 7 steps as shown on the slide. In order to set meaningful objectives and targets, it's vital that an organisation fully understands their current carbon footprint. So step 1 is a verification of the organisation's footprint against the requirements of ISO 14064. The footprint will include scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions, so it's a true reflection of the impact an organisation is having. Having established the carbon footprint, the organisation then implements their emission reduction action plan following the guidance set out in the ISO and Net Zero Guidelines document, IWA 42. Once emission reduction plans are in place, BSI will conduct an audit of the plans and the management controls against the key principles in IWA 42. This audit includes a review of targets to confirm that they are based on science and will, if delivered, mean an organisation will achieve net zero status by 2050 or sooner if that's their goal. Once an organisation demonstrates the management controls and reduction plans and targets are aligned with the principles in IWA 42, they receive certification to the Net Zero Pathway and are able to demonstrate their achievement to interested parties by using the BSI Net Zero Pathway Assured Mark of Trust. Having made a good start, it's important that things are kept on track, so BSI will conduct an annual audit to review progress with objectives and to reconfirm that the targets remain sensible and achievable. Every 3 years, the organisation will undergo a re-verification of the carbon footprint against ISO 14064 in order to fully validate their achievements with regards to emission reductions. Although I described the pathway as having 7 steps, we do appreciate that for some organisations it's very early in the journey and they're unsure of the first steps that they need to take. This is where Step 0, the Discovery Workshop, can help. This is a high-level review of your current activities with signposting to actions to begin the process of calculating your carbon footprint and establishing an emissions reduction plan. Carbon footprints, emission reduction plans and emission scopes can be daunting for people who have limited experience in this area and who are now being asked to look into the issue of net zero. BSI have developed a number of different training and awareness tools to help with this. These range from 20-minute online basic awareness courses through to full ISO 14064 implementation courses. Whatever your current level of expertise, BSI have training and support available to further your knowledge in this complex area. Thanks for your attention. I hope you found this session interesting and useful. If you'd like to learn more about the Net Zero Pathway, ISO 14064 or the ISO Net Zero Guidelines IWA 42, please use the links in the slide. The Resources Hub also includes case studies, self-assessment questionnaires and other useful information to support your journey to making your organisation net zero.